Love and health form the foundation and pillars that support all that you do to create fulfillment and success in every aspect of your life. Love within us guides our paths while our health enables us to drive forward. The two are inseparable and vital for growth and reaching your fullest potential. Welcome to Love and Health in America with Dr. Dewey Lee, Mary McMahon, and Jens Johnson. Dr. Lee is an international speaker, author, inventor of the Diamond Matrix, and medical director of Advanced Surgical Arts. Mary McMahon is a certified financial planner committed to maximizing your financial success. And Jens Johnson, the Mindset Master, is a best-selling author, speaker, mastermind facilitator, and success mindset coach. They are committed to help you succeed by optimizing your health, finances, and relationships. Please join them and explore all the facets of love and health to achieve and live your abundant life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Dewey Lee, Mary McMahon, and Jens Johnson.
Jens, your mic is muted. So is Mary. You need to unmute your mics.
Okay, well,
There you go.
welcome to another episode of Love and Health in America.
How's everybody doing out there?
Listen,
Wonderful.
You know, I mean, it looks easy what we do, but it's not. You know? it's not easy. It's not easy.
You have to fly this ship.
Well, Dr. Lee, we're so excited because you've got an incredible episode planned for us today, and we're just going to let you kind of take it away.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much. So how's everybody out there? Hope all of you had a great week and enjoying this kind of topsy-turvy weather. At least we have some nice sunshine. Now it's getting a little warm and cold, and it's been kind of interesting time period. And I kind of want to continue on with some of the topics that we started talking about, last time. Different exploration of different topics, depending on who's leading the show. So on today's episode, what I want to do is explore a little bit and set some foundation on establishing a healthy brain. Just talk about the brain itself. That this is part of the Diamond Matrix that I developed many years ago. And brain health really is at the foundation of everything. And I know we're going to be talking about nutrition and other things as well. But on today, I just want to start laying some of the groundwork to discuss maybe a little more detail in future episodes to how to actually develop and achieve a healthy brain, no matter where you are. Obviously, if you're young, you have a greater chance because hopefully not too much damage is done to your brain. If you're middle-aged and older, if you're still relatively healthy, more than likely your brain is still healthy. And if you're not, there's still a chance that brain can get healthier. And it's one of the very interesting thing about the brain. Back in when I was going through medical school, which was not that long ago, it was long ago, but it was not that long ago. We thought that brain was finite, that we thought that you were born with so many brain cells. I remember talking about this during neurology classes, that you were born with so many brain cells. If you lose those cells, that's it, and you don't get any more. So every brain cell is precious when you have surgery, all these kind of things. But as it turns out, that's not true. The brain is constantly developing and evolving. It doesn't matter what age you're in. And if you're healthy and your brain is healthy, it forms new connections, learns new things, and it can regenerate and can heal. If you have an injury, you can actually heal, even if you have stroke and whatnot, obviously to a certain level, of course. But you can actually adapt to different things. So there are actually concepts called neurogenesis, which means developing and growing new neurons and neurosynaptic connections. And that's how you learn new things and develop new skills, etc. And there's also neuroplasticity, and this is a big deal that's been around. I think initially this concept was developed about 5-6 years ago, idea of neuroplasticity. And what that has to do with the idea that the brain is adaptable. It's not finite. Just because you have certain set of ideas, certain sort of habits, certain sort of thought patterns, etc., that all these things can be molded and changed according to your will. And it's sort of self-serving because you're the brain controlling yourself to change and mold the way you want to do. That's the beauty of this whole thing, is that you can literally control the brain, which controls you. So you can sit there and ruminate about the total circular logic behind what we can do with the brain. But the exciting thing is that brain is not static. Okay, you can make it as viable and as dynamic as you want. Okay, and that is the exciting thing that I think we all need to realize, and kind of embrace the fact that you really have total control over this, and you can develop it and make it as healthy and as strong as you want. And this is absolutely critical, because in the past few episodes, I talked about sort of a modern idea of longevity of us as humans. It doesn't matter what sex you are, that we now actually have technology to keep you alive to 100, 120 years, and you can stay healthy and viable and all that. So you need a healthy brain. If you want to sit there and live to 100, 120, you need a healthy brain. So that's really, really important. So for many, many different reasons. So I want to start to lay the groundwork about, what are some components that you really need to have to, number one, reach and maintain and hopefully further develop a healthy brain. And hopefully that's going to be the sort of focus of our discussion today. Okay. So just to start with, there are 4 basic tenets, and there are many, but you can't spend all of the time doing to talk about thousands of different things. But for me, the basic 4 fundamental factors are nutrition, good lifestyle, okay, and this is both physical and mental lifestyle, and healthy emotional and spiritual contact, relationship with yourself and with others, etc. And then the other thing is sort of a modern technology that I'm pretty well immersed in, and that has to do with the regenerative medicine, and that area includes hormonal balance, of course, nutritional balance, and balancing the whole person in a regenerative sense, but also things like, I call it cellular medicine. And now the vernacular is stem cells. And initially, when stem cells came about, it was a very specific type of cell we talked about. Nowadays, it's like, oh yeah, it's like Kleenex. It's like a generic term for cellular medicine now. So I kind of use stem cells, and some people kind of frown on that. But when you talk about stem cells, people kind of know what you're talking about. But it actually is cellular medicine. There are many different levels of cellular medicine we can talk about, and I'm not going to spend too much time here. Let's save that for another episode where we really delve into the different facets of cellular medicine and what that can mean for you, not only for brain, but for your overall health. But that is a very, very important component of aiding and maybe supporting and invigorating your brain as well. So it's not an option for everybody necessarily, but certainly it's a very, very viable technology that's out there. And, like anything, it was expensive when it first came out. It's becoming less and less expensive and much more accessible for just about anybody now. So it really is a viable option for those kind of things. So we're going to spend a little time talking about these options and lay down some groundwork. And so all of you can take a look at these ideas and see how you can adapt these and incorporate that into your own lives, and to start kind of thinking about, okay, what can I really do starting today to reinvigorate and revitalize my own brain, my own mental functioning, my mental thinking, and try to have a healthier life, because there really is a foundation for all that. So let's start with the idea of nutrition. Okay, this really is fundamental because we all eat. We have to, and we have a choice of what we eat. Every day we have a choice, and we can pick and choose. Good things, bad things. I think we all know what good things are, but we don't necessarily choose that. I'm certainly guilty of that, like anybody else. And then we tend to gravitate towards the things that kind of make us feel good or taste good, and you got to have some different addictions and whatnot, those kind of things. But so this is part of us being humans. We're not perfect, but idea is to really understand and learn the things that are positive and really try to strive to maximize those as much as possible. And once in a while, enjoy a little vice, because life is too short to not to enjoy certain things that maybe quote unquote bad for you. But so anyway, so that's the idea. So let's talk a little bit about the idea of nutrition. And I know Jen's has some, educational background in health as well. So, but my whole thing really has to do with idea of how do you maximize, the intake of good things to your body without being bored. And when people think about health and nutrition, everybody thinks about sort of a cardboard type of food. Oh God, I gotta eat this stuff that just tastes terrible. I don't know how I'm gonna eat this. I know it's good for me, but I gotta eat this, and there's no taste. And it used to be like that, but these days, there's so much development in food technology and seasoning and different ways of combining different ingredients that you don't have to suffer, bad tasting food to get good nutrition. In fact, it's the opposite. What's really interesting is good food, believe it or not, looks good. Okay, so if you think about nice fresh vegetables, I know when we were kids we hated vegetables, but those days are over. As adults, if you go to the grocery store and look for different things, different produce or whatever, things that are nice and bright and shiny, like different bell peppers, yellow, red, green, they're all different shades. The ones that are really nice and fresh, and they're beautiful colors, right? Even zucchini, cucumbers, even lettuce, they're different types. You can look at them. If they have very, very crisp texture, nice color to them, very shiny. They don't look green and wilted. Like you pick up an asparagus, if it sort of falls over, not a good asparagus, not much nutrition in there. But if you have a nice, firm, tight asparagus, it looks good, feels good. So the healthy things look good and feel good. So it's actually very easy to select different types of foods that are actually good for you, because you can just literally go and look at them and say, wow, this looks good, this looks fresh, and doesn't look wilted. And if it's organic, that's better. There are different ways of people farm and harvest those foods, but those are actually one kind of easy way to kind of select foods that are good for you, because actually healthy foods actually look good and feel good. So that's one easy way. And the other thing is, of course, combining different ingredients. So, we all talk about the food pyramid, and of course I studied that in medical school, and of course practiced it for many years. And then once I started becoming more insightful, let's say, in overall nutrition, after being board certified in anti-aging and regenerative medicine, I really started looking at the food pyramid and what all that means. And I realized it's completely backwards. Food pyramid should be upside down. It actually should be a vertical pyramid, not the right side one. So the emphasis on carbs and all those kind of things is kind of detrimental. And I think that's been the biggest problem that we may have had in this country, is because there's so much emphasis on carbohydrates that we have the issues with the sugar addiction, the obesity, and all this different kind of metabolic problems that we have, because it is so associated with carbs. Now, not all carbs are bad, obviously. We need carbs. It's the major foundation of our nutrition, but it really depends on the kind of carbs we take. And carb is a huge word. I mean, it takes into everything. It takes into all the things, all the different breads, different grains, right? All the sugars, believe it or not, the table sugar and all the processed sugars that we eat, they're all part of the carbohydrate family. So when you talk about carbs, you eat different breads. We buy Wonder Bread. Of course, I grew up with Wonder Bread, peanut butter and jelly and Wonder Bread. It was like the best. And but you have no idea at that time what Wonder Bread really was. It's just basically highly processed flour that really has no nutritional value. Now, I don't want to get a letter from Wonder Bread that I said bad things. I'm talking about a scientific fact of exactly what's in there. And then there are different kind of grains and whatnot. But you have to really realize, what is actually under the umbrella of carbohydrates? What kind of grains are there? And I'm Asian, so of course I grew up on rice, and there are many different types of rice. White rice that we eat all over the place is actually not that good, because this pure processed white rice is all sugar. And that's what these carbohydrates really are. All the bread you eat, all the white bread, most of the carbohydrates that we eat, I mean, they taste great, believe me. I love bread. I mean, there are many different types of bread. I love eating and tasting bread, but I know what I'm eating. It's like, okay, here we go. This is actually, I'm going to enjoy this because it's just a small slice. But that is the consequence. So you have to kind of really figure out, okay, what kind of carbs are healthy for you? Okay, what kind of grains are good for you? They still taste good. So we're talking about quinoa and other things. Brown rice is actually very good. The white rice that are not highly processed actually is very good. You can supplement that because some of the other grains can be a little dry and sometimes difficult to eat. And mixing that together with different legumes, different beans, all those kind of things, it makes it much more palatable. But there are so many different types of grains out there, and it's all available now. We didn't have the abundance of these kind of things back when I was growing up. Now, I mean, you go to Costco or any grocery store, Whole Foods, I mean, there's just so many different grains and half the stuff you haven't even heard of before. But they're out there, and they're not that expensive. It's very easy to combine them, and you can get incredible texture of different carbohydrate-rich food that actually have protein that is actually good for you. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are vegans, and I know they're very acutely aware of maintaining a very healthy protein intake through carbohydrates, through the grains. And that's a whole art and science in itself. And maybe one day we'll devote time just talk about vegetarian diet and what that can mean and how that can be used for people who are non-vegetarian as well. So there's a lot of benefits to that approach too. So that's one. So carbohydrates for now, by and large, for most people, is really very unhealthy, overly processed carbohydrates. So if you can figure out a way to narrow that, to select the ones that are really healthy for you and do some research, it's not that hard, and kind of corral that into a category of like, okay, these are really nice, high, complex carbohydrates that don't break down very easily when I eat them and alternate to sugar, but actually help bridge the gap and actually develop some protein and other nutritional parts of the body as well. So that actually is very, very simple and easy to do. And then, of course, the next food group is, protein. We all, of course, all of us, if you're not vegetarian, we're all, important. So, of course, most of our body is part of the protein. Protein is very, very important, especially for those who are exercising, weightlifting, trying to grow some muscles, etc. And, for everything, I mean, even for the development of all the different parts of the joints, protein is critical. And of course, when you're exercising, and we'll all talk about exercising, and that's comes to the lifestyle that we're going to talk to in a minute. But there are different types of proteins, and they all have different kind of complexes. And so, some basic proteins like eggs, chicken, fish, meat, different types of meat, of course, depending on if you get the ones that are just out there, the different grades of meat, the different fat content, organic, non-organic, so many different ones. Now we're talking about grass-fed beef and certain different ones that are farmed in a different way, and there's buffalo now it's making a comeback. Bison meat is coming back. So all kinds of different choices, and now you have to kind of really figure out, okay, we have all these proteins that I can take. What are actually good proteins? Believe it or not, there are good proteins and they're not bad proteins. So I mean, I'm a proponent of fish because high omega-3 is very, very good for you. So there's a lot of, for salmon, different types of fish. You can go to the grocery store, and a lot of them are farm-raised fish, be it trout, catfish, salmon. Those are the most common ones. Tilapia is a very popular fish in the United States, but most of them are farm-raised. You have to kind of figure out, okay, what does that mean? Well, we eat farm foods. We eat farm grains, corn, and they're all farmed. So farm must be good. Well, yeah, maybe, but you have to kind of understand what that means and how they are farmed. So if you look at a lot of the farmed fish, farming is a business. Quantity, all those kind of things make a difference. So from a business point of view, more fish you have in a certain space of water, there's a higher profit potential because, more fish you have, right? So when you have a lot of fish in a pond or wherever that they are growing, they're so crowded, you have to kind of figure out how they're actually raising this fish. Well, I mean, some of the stories you read, can be quite disgusting because really they don't do that much cleaning, and the fish is basically swimming in their own, waste and feces and whatnot. So of course they get fed in all those things, and that's what they eat, and they of course dump tons of antibiotics into this, tanks to keep the germs away, so those fish doesn't die. So that is a big problem with a lot of farmed fish, and it's hard to tell where these fish come from, how clean the farms are, and how they're actually raised. Because they look good, but a lot of the fish that actually have different color have actually been dyed. A lot of the farm fish lose their natural color. If you look at, let's say, a wild salmon, very, very bright pink. It's almost the color of this red behind our names. It's that red. That's how much omega-3 fat they have. And that's the color of omega-3 oil. Okay, so they're loaded with that in the wild. Well, farm fish don't have that. Okay, so they have to create this color to make it look like, oh my God, this is nice fish. So they actually inject them with dye, and so you have to really kind of think about what you're eating. So I rarely buy farmed fish in grocery stores. So when I buy them, I look at them, it's like, it's farmed, they're all farmed. So I don't buy those. So if I have a choice, I buy the wild ones. Sockeye salmon, the ones from wild. North Atlantic and the wild caught salmon, they label them very carefully. They're more expensive, obviously, because it takes more effort to get them. They're fewer in number. So obviously quantity, quality, all those kind of things matter. So you have to pay more. But question is, okay, what are you putting in your body? Is it worth a little extra cost? That's the decision you have to make. But you have to kind of realize that there are different grades of this type of proteins. And we're talking about fish at this point. And you have to kind of think about, okay, what kind of choices do I want to make in terms of if I'm going to eat this? Do I want to spend a little more money, eat the higher quality one, or spend less and buy the farm and take the chance of, getting a different kind of things that may be in the fish? So that's individual choice. And same thing applies to beef, and how the different farm animals are raised and how they're treated with the hormones. A lot of chicken, we all know about chicken farms. They basically sit in a little cage. They don't even move their whole lives. They get fed their food and they get injected. And so there's a whole different level of fish farming and then chicken farming, all those kind of things too. So those are kind of things that you can do some research on and really figure out, what type of protein do I want to ingest, for me and my family. And those are the decisions that you have to make. And same thing applies to beef. Now there's a huge movement of supporting local, dairy and livestock farmers. People actually have relationships and contracts with people who actually grow livestock that are locals. They know exactly where their beef or lamb, whatever they want to eat, is coming from because they actually know the farmer. They've been to the farm. They know how the animals are treated, how they graze. They're actually out there grazing. They're not sitting in some barn, being pampered and injected with things and whatnot. So there are a lot of different varieties out there, and it takes some research. And if it really is important to you, it takes a little time, and I think it's very well worth the effort to do that. And I'm not saying just do that with everything, but these are the decisions that you have to make in terms of trying to maximize that. And the reason that this is important is because the nutritional content, of course, of the food we eat goes to the whole body, of course, but certainly goes to the brain. Because remember, brain takes 25% of your nutrition. Huge amount. I mean, yes, mostly comes in the glucose, but a lot of other things flow through there as well. The 25% of the blood flow goes to the brain, and a huge amount of glucose. Then, very, very hungry organ. So a lot of that, everything we ingest directly affects the brain. So all those kind of things really, really matter. Okay, so that's the idea behind the nutrition. And this is a very fundamental because obviously we eat every day, and it's critical to make some good, healthy choices for yourself and your family.
Yeah,
and then I always talk about, when I talk about...
I love Dr. Lee. I know I've got an echo for
Yeah.
Mary, this is an area that you are very passionate about. And I'd like to hear just some of your experience in this as well.
Well, everything that Dr. Lee talked about is like so important. The quality of your food is important. Think of your body like it's a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or an even more expensive automobile than that, more finely engineered automobile than that. Would you fill up your gas tank with soda? Would you fill your gas tank up with, things that the car can't run on? Yet, that's what a lot of Americans have learned to eat that way because of our fast food industry in the last 60 years, because of the corporatization of food in the last 60 years. It's extraordinary to me. I can walk into a grocery store, a mainline grocery store, and I'll look around and I'll just be like so shocked that everything that's on the shelves is not actually really food. And you can't be healthy unless you take care of your body at a cellular level. So all those nutrients that Dr. Lee is talking about, every cell in your body needs that nutrition. And the brain is 80% water. Am I right, Dr. Lee?
Yeah, 90%.
Yeah, and your brain needs good, big, fluffy cholesterol particles in the brain.
Yeah.
That's the HDL cholesterol. So, and the food pyramid, I looked at it one day because I was following it too.
Yeah, we all did. We all did.
And I looked at it, and then I'm like, oh, this is not a food pyramid. This is a government subsidy program.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And that's how they
Bottom of the pyramid are government subsidies. So the government put out their food subsidy, their farmer subsidy program.
Well, if you look at the RDA, that's exactly what it was. RDA was first developed during war to figure out, okay, what is the minimum requirement of nutrition to keep people from dying? That's what RDA is. It's not like healthy amount. It's like, this is the level you need to not die. So if you stick to the RDA in terms of vitamins and minerals, you're not keeping yourself healthy. Your body needs far more.
Oh, one of the most important things you can do for yourself every single day are the things that you're talking about today, Dr. Lee. Nutrition
That's
is
a
one
little
of them.
thought in setting it all up. So, but
The problem is, and I'm going to let you move on because you've got a lot to talk about. I know. One of the problems is that people don't know how to put food together. They don't know how to shop. They don't know how to make a meal at home. They don't know how to do that. And that's a huge problem. Listen, if you don't eat, you're going to die. So, I mean, it's actually it's a life survival skill that everyone needs to have. And it's shocking to me how many people don't have that skill in life.
And I'll tell you one thing. Have you ever heard of the grain brain? Have you heard of that book?
Yes.
And all the research goes right back to what you were talking about earlier, Dr. Lee, how this certain types of grain really, I mean, it's causing diabetes, it's causing Alzheimer's disease, it's causing dementia. And people don't realize, you know, I don't know about y'all, but when I grew up, the saying, what you eat will heal you or kill you. And I feel like we've really gone away from that as a society as a whole. You know, I know there's a lot of people that are health conscious, and so they understand this. But even just, you know, common knowledge, people, like you said, Mary, they don't know how to put food together. And food is so vitally important for our brain health. But, you know, here we are 25 minutes into the show, and we're still just touching the surface with nutrition because it's so vitally important. You know, I mean, I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I can just kind of have a sluggish day maybe. And then when I stop, it's like, well, gosh, I really haven't eaten very much today, or I haven't eaten the best of foods. I mean, that is your fuel. Like you said, Mary, what are you fueling your body with? And I did not know that, Dr. Lee, that 25% of our food goes to that energy source.
Yeah.
Right. That's huge.
That's that huge. In the blood flow. Yeah. So that's why, I mean, I didn't realize this when I was in medical school, but I would literally sit there, you know, we all did, you know, sit in the library with a pile of books and sit there and sit on your butt for 3 hours and study, going through, you know, that's what we did, right? And all of a sudden I'm sitting, it's like, my God, my stomach is growling. I'm starved. It's like, I didn't do anything. All I did was sit here for 3 hours. Why am I so hungry? Well, now I know. Well, you're hungry because your brain was eating up all the glucose and all the nutrients, you know, working because you're studying and working it. And all the nutrient was depleted because the brain was taking all that. And that's why you're hungry. Because
no wonder I'm so hungry, because I'm so smart and cerebral.
Exactly. Exactly right. Your brain's just sucking it all up.
That's a good comeback. That's a good comeback.
That's pretty good. So anyway, I'll talk a little bit about the last part of the three major ones: carbohydrates, proteins, but the last one is fats, right? So this is, of course, the subject, you know, near and dear to a lot of people. Everybody talk about, oh yeah, well, you know, as long as you don't eat, you know, bad fats or whatever. But people don't realize there really are good fats and bad fats. I mean, Mary just mentioned HDL, which is a high density lipoprotein, which is supposed to be the good cholesterol, and you know, we can spend literally days talking about cholesterol. But so that's just basic concept of good and bad cholesterol. But just from a purely practical point of view of what are good fats or bad fats, remember when I was growing up, nobody ate butter. Somehow the butter was the bad thing. And I grew up on margarine. Remember, don't fool with Mother Nature, right? And all that stuff. I still remember those commercials and the different, taste they had with butter and margarine, and our margarine was great, and blah, blah, blah. And we all went through this whole phase about eggs and cholesterol, and you don't eat butter because it's bad for your cholesterol. It's like, we didn't know. This is the kind of stuff they talked about on TV. And of course, now I realize after going through all my education and experience that they were completely wrong. It was completely the opposite. The margarine is horrible for you. It's one of the worst things you could put in your body is margarine, believe it or not. And corn oil, we can have a whole episode just on corn. I was thinking about this, what it means to have a corn-based society, because we really do have a corn-based society. And corn, unfortunately, is not the corn that our ancestors ate. This is very highly processed, genetically modified corn. And the oil, that it comes from is basically reflective of the corn that has been modified as well. And although we all talk about hydrogenated, oil, trans fats, and all those kind of things, and a lot of these things come from the chemical modifications. And believe it or not, when you actually look at the basic of fat, Crisco, when you look at it, if you use it in a certain amount, is much healthier for you than corn oil. And Wesson and all those kind of things, the sunflower oil, the different seed oils, all those kind of different oils that we see, sesame oil, and all those kind of things, that actually that's not good for you at all. They really are very harmful. Of course, you can use a small amount. Sesame oil, I'm Asian, I grew up in sesame oil, but we don't use that to cook with. It's a little flavoring. I mean, that's what sesame oil is. You don't cook with it because it burns up in a second. It's got a very, very low flash point. So we had to think about, okay, what are actually good oils that you can actually use to cook, fry with, and it's actually healthy for you. There are not that many. Coconut oil is not bad, but not everybody likes the taste of coconut. And coconut oil will, if you use too much, will raise your cholesterol. And just it can have an effect on your triglycerides as well. So my go-to choice of healthy oil that you can use to cook with is avocado oil, and a lot of people haven't even heard about it. Avocado oil? Are you kidding? Really? Well, it usually sits next to olive oil, and we all know about olive oil, right? And olive oil is great. Really is one of the best oils you can have, but there are different qualities of olive oil. You have to really be very picky about who grew and raised the olives from which the oil is produced. And that is a sort of an art and science by itself. You have to kind of figure out, okay, what is the highest quality olive oil, And so a lot of people cook with olive oil. Well, it's not bad. If you use very low heat, olive oil is not bad, but olive oil has a very low flash point, which means it breaks down at a lower temperature. So if you try to fry with it, the olive oil will break apart. When it falls apart, it actually becomes toxic. Okay, so that's why you use olive oil cold on salad and dressings, or people actually literally take a spoonful of olive oil out of the bottle because it's cold, and if it's a high quality olive oil, it's actually good for you. It actually helps you produce HDL and all the good fats that your body needs because it has all that stuff in there. But if you cook it and use it in the wrong way, it can actually turn around and harm you. So you have to kind of understand some of the nuance of olive oil. The reason I like avocado oil is because it has very high flash point. It's 500 degrees of Fahrenheit. So you can literally fry with it. And it's not going to break down. It's not going to become toxic. So avocado oil is much stronger in that sense than olive oil. And because avocados are what it is, you eat avocado. I eat avocados, very, very often. It's got very nice, healthy, good fats in it. So that's what you're getting. So that's sort of my go-to top choice for cooking oil is actually avocado oil. And I kind of had to train my wife because, she's Chinese and grew up in Chinese cooking, and all they use is corn oil, this horrible seed oils, and they fry the hell out of everything. And like, oh my God, I don't know how Chinese people became so populated because eating all this junk. But anyway,
I didn't know any of this about the oil. Well, obviously, I knew corn oil was bad.
Oh yeah. Small amounts not bad, but people use so much of it, and I have to really kind of train her to just start cooking with this. It's hard. It's hard, believe me. But because it's old habits, you grow up with this, and your body gets used to certain taste because when you cook with these kind of oils, your food tastes a certain way. And when you use a different kind of oil, it tastes differently. And she doesn't know how to fry with it. And it's an evolving process, believe me. But for even just frying eggs and just doing your basic low grade, frying steak or frying fish or whatever, kind of think about avocado oil rather than.
Well, now what about? I mean, I know you're probably going to say, Jens, come on. But remember, when we grew up, it was vegetable oil.
Oh yeah. Well, vegetables just as bad. Same thing.
Okay, so and then
because it's got a lot of most of the vegetable oil is oil.
What is it? Sunflower oil?
Oh, that's horrible. Oh my God, yeah, it's horrible.
So
sunflower, any kind of seed oils are bad. Okay. Tons of trans fats.
I'm telling you, Dr. Lee, I just think that I should go to the store with you.
Yeah, well, I think have a whole different episode just on oil because I thought about this when you and I first started doing this last year. We talked about diamond matrix and all those kind of things, and one of the episodes I really wanted to do was devote a whole segment just on fats, good fats, bad fats, oils, and whatnot. How do you actually select the stuff that you use every day to cook with? And this is the foundation of cooking is oil, right? Mm-hmm. So if you start cooking with this crappy bad oil, everything you put into it is going to be bad because there you go. You started out with garbage. So most people don't realize that you got this big jug of corn oil. It's like, okay, I'm going to put in 5 cups of corn oil, fry and whatever. And that's what people do every day. And people have no idea what's actually going on.
I mean, what do you think about bacon, Dr. Lee?
Actually, bacon, depending on how the fat is coming from how the pig was raised, bacon's great.
Because
it has to be cooked in a certain way.
We eat a lot of bacon in the
That's fine, but it has to be cooked in a certain way. You have to make sure that the farming was done, so the pig from which the bacon comes from is healthy. Because remember, fat collects a lot of nutrients and garbage. It's a storage space, right?
Yeah.
So if the pig was raised in a bad farm, was fed garbage, well, the fat in the bacon is not going to be very good. If a pig was raised in a very healthy farm, yeah, you're going to have high quality bacon. And the way you render the bacon is important. You don't want to necessarily burn it and make it too crispy, because if you burn and char the fat, that's actually worse for you. It can actually become carcinogenic. So you have to know how to cook the bacon properly. And my preference of cooking bacon is actually in the oven. Okay, you put the bacon in a strip and let the oil drop and put it in the oven. It becomes fantastic. There's like no grease. All the fat is rendered out. You get a beautiful protein, and it's the best way to cook bacon is actually in the oven. That's how I do it. Also keeps your stove up.
Do you put it on foil, or you just?
Yeah, I put it on foil.
Okay.
Yeah, foil. But they actually make racks that you can put bacon in, so almost like vertical, and it drips out. But you can do it in different racks where the fat melts out. There are different ways.
I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, but that's how I do it. It's like 350, 400 degrees. You put it in, you can see it sizzling and all the fat's dripping out. You can take it out and turn it over, and when all the fat's gone, it's really wonderful, crisp bacon. It's fantastic, and that's really healthy because all the fat's gone. So anyway, things like that. I mean, these are some really fascinating things that we eat every day. We don't think twice about it. We just put it in our mouth and eat, and fried chicken. I love fried chicken, but you have to really figure out, what is it fried in? Well, more than likely it's corn oil, things like that. So that's a whole nother deal. But anyway, we got off a little topic, but it's kind of fun stuff to talk about. But think about good fats and bad fats. I mean, butter. I use a lot of butter. I haven't used margarine in probably decades after I learned about what margarine is all about. So margarine actually is like solidified corn and vegetable oil. That's what margarine is. So it's no different than having a teaspoon of corn oil, putting that on your toast or whatever. That's exactly what you're doing. So butter. I mean, I tend to buy organic butter because I know that's coming from an organic cow. And salted, unsalted, that's just a matter of taste. But so I tend to be selective even in things like that. And I do use butter, in my toast and whatever, and I cook with butter. So I mean, French food is full of butter. Okay, well, they don't live any, they don't necessarily have much more heart problems than, they're much healthier for some different reasons as well. But certainly their use of butter is not necessarily causing them too much detriment to health. So yeah, of course, you don't want to use a ton of butter, but it's delicious use in the right amount for the right purpose. It makes the food taste great, but it's not harming you. It's actually better for you than corn oil and vegetable oil and the sunflower seed oil and all the seed oils you're using. So I would use organic butter over any of that stuff in time. So it's really a matter of kind of understanding the ramifications of how these things are produced, where they come from, and what it does in the body. And then going into fat, we mentioned cholesterol a little bit. Of course, cholesterol actually is an important part of our nutrition. You got to have cholesterol. If you actually study the production of, let's say, different hormones in our body, okay? The main hormones that really drive us are testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, okay? So what is the substrate that drives the production of those hormones? Those are very important sex hormones. It's cholesterol. Yeah, that's the first thing. Cholesterol breaks down into the first step that breaks down into the sex hormone. If your cholesterol is too low, you're not going to have enough sex hormones. Isn't that the most interesting irony?
that is so interesting.
Yeah, so think about this. There are a lot of men, who go to their doctors and whatnot, and their goal is to lower the cholesterol as much as possible. Well, the cholesterol is so low, they can't produce testosterone. And guess what they end up with? ED.
This is so fascinating that, here we are 40 minutes into the show, still talking about nutrition.
Well, I haven't gotten to all the other stuff. So
but you know what? Which makes me think that once a month, we really should be talking about nutrition because it's so vital to our health. And what you just talked about it's also vital to your physical love as well. Mary.
When we were talking about this, I had this vision of let's do a cooking show.
Oh no, I thought about it. Believe me, no. I mean, I actually tried to come up with a TV show called Brain Foods. I actually even tried to create a pilot for it, and the idea behind that, I haven't given it up yet. I might do it still, but this is the idea behind it. Because I do brain health and imaging and all those kind of things. And I do a lot of counseling of patients on what they eat and nutrition and things like that. And food always comes up, and of course, none of them eat well at all. It's food stuff they eat is just crazy. So I thought, okay, I can spend hours and hours with every patient every time they come up, teaching them about different foods, which never helps me because I can't do that in 20 minutes. Or I thought, I can put together something because food shows are very popular. Food Network started was just one channel. Now we got 3 different channels. They're all cram-packed with different food shows, and people that love food, it's basically food porn. That's basically what it is. So I thought, okay, let's take advantage of this and turn it into a nutritional or educational platform. So my idea was to come up with a show, different formats of creating a cooking, teaching them how to cook in a simple way that is not too expensive. The stuff you can go and get from grocery stores, like literally anybody can walk to any grocery store, find all this stuff. You don't have to go through some really weird exotic grocery store for some of these ingredients, okay? All the stuff that we have and how to teach them to cook properly, and then intermix during the show why this ingredient is important for you. Let's say we talk about salmon. Okay, we can have a little 10-second aside about salmon. The reason we like salmon for this reason is because it has omega-3. It's good for you. It has a great cholesterol, great fat content. It's actually helps you lower your triglycerides. And that's the reason why salmon, if it's a high-quality salmon, is good for you. So while they're learning how to cook, they're learning about why this food is important. They talk about bread. Okay, we have different types of bread. Okay, let's talk about bread with different kind of grains. What are good grains and bad grains? White bread versus whole grain, wheat grain, et cetera, right? So what they're talking about eating, preparing good, healthy breakfast, you can talk about, okay, why is this bread or that bread or this butter or this, this type of jam, why is that important? What is the nutritional information that you need to understand to make the proper selection of even simple things like breakfast? So I had this idea of creating a whole series of shows to, number one, teach people how to select, how to cook, these things, because cooking is a big deal, but also at the same time, learn about nutrition, why you're making the selections and how you want to do that. And that was the concept behind Brain Foods, and I even have it trademarked and all that stuff. So maybe we can talk about, getting something together, and maybe.
Well, I think it's a great idea, and I know that I think Mary had a little bit of internet issues, and she just disappeared.
Yeah, I know. So
she's coming back in. I see her.
Okay.
But I just think it's. I know we're obviously long on time, and we got to close up the show. But I think brain health is so important, and nutrition is vital.
Oh, it's absolutely foundational.
To all of our health.
Right.
And I think it's just probably something we need to at least once a month go deeper on. And potentially even do a show in one of our kitchens.
Yeah, I know. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Go to one of y'all's kitchens, because my kitchen doesn't get a lot of action. So, Mary,
well, there are places that actually have show kitchens that actually do that. So,
and it would be so much fun.
It'd be fun.
Because I think that we can't really address love and health in America if we're not addressing nutrition on a consistent basis, and also in a deep way.
Yeah.
Mary, any parting words before we close up?
Yes. Live richly, eat well,
and love deeply,
and stay healthy.
Until we see you next Tuesday.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for being with us for this episode of Love and Health in America. Dr. Dewey Lee, Mary McMahon, and Jens Johnson are committed to help you achieve a life full of love, health, and abundance. Please join us in our next episode as we share another facet for you to optimize love and health in your life. Until next time, love deeply, live richly, and stay healthy.